He had a bandage on his head, and he was tormented by severe headache, so he did not realize where he was. Uttering a few words, he unexpectedly heard his voice changed. The protagonist stared at the window glass, but did not recognize himself. He was embarrassed by what was happening and could not grasp the essence of the situation. A few days after awakening, he realized several significant things. It seemed incredible, but he was an ordinary office worker who, as it turned out, has reincarnated in a completely different world. He was revived in the form of Samuel, a 9-year-old boy and the oldest son of Baron Rinbach, the owner of the smallest estate in rural areas. The hero remembered how, when he returned home, he drank whiskey and, without eating and not taking the shower, immediately rushed into bed. Meanwhile, Sam could not understand the cause of reincarnation. His consciousness was overwhelmed by the thoughts of the events of that night. The protagonist thought about the connection between reincarnation and death, which was no longer tested. Sam's memories of his life were increasingly blurred, but at the same time he remembered the past existence, which allowed him to penetrate into the essence of reincarnation. However, the current problem was his brother Ming-in, who was born a year later. Memories of how his younger brother, under the pretext of training the possession of the sword, brutally beat Sam. This, in his opinion, provoked the return of memory, and the protagonist wondered whether the true essence of Sam had disappeared since then, although such reflections were inappropriate to afford. Despite the fact that the glory of the Rinbach family is directly related to the sword, as evidenced by the current head of the genus, he knew that he was not endowed with talent for weapons. He was constantly reminded that possession of the sword, the necessary skill. He knew that Sam's biological mother was gone, and his father's mistress, Jolanda, became his only legal wife. The protagonist did not carry her at all. Thanks to the conspiracy with his stepmother, Sam was eliminated from the right to become the heir to the head of the family. In his place came the younger brother Mannion, and the protagonist unexpectedly realized what the trials he had to go through. Until now, it was only a small gear in a mechanism that is unable to grow to something more. Sam knew that now his new body would not allow to repeat past ambitions, but sitting his hands could not sit. He realized that new opportunities for self-improvement were opened together with the new shell. "Tap on the door, Derek. Butter," announced the younger owner that the dish is ready. This news was pleasantly surprised by Sam, who, feeling hungry, was about to go down. In his house, besides him, there were two more, a butterfly Derek and a maid Daphne, who always welcome him on the ground floor. According to the father, a man who does not own a sword does not deserve to sit at a family table, which seemed to have a smile on the face of the young hero. However, he felt sympathy for these two, because of their concerns, Sam, having lost his mother, never felt lonely. Suddenly, Daphne put a book on the table in front of him and explained that she brought exactly the one he asked for. The guy decided that, since he did not have a natural talent for sword possession, he would definitely turn to magic, because if she really existed, it would not be incredibly unreasonable. The lady was incredibly excited by this find. Daphne kindly asked him not to cry, but Derek emphasized what a wonderful guy he was, and indicated where his father's gaze was directed. The hero remembered that Sam's mother worked here as a maid, and once they were a real comrade. He shared with his staff a story about his stepmother, who was previously a maid, and sincerely expressed their gratitude. Daphne confidently assured him that everything would be fine, and they would always stay nearby. They promised to take care of the young owner on behalf of his late mother. He felt heat from her true concern for him. Hornikia convincingly reminded that it was not necessary to give up, even if, in his opinion, he lacked a magical gift. So I left the servant and climbed to the top floor, closing the door behind me. In his shelter, he plunged into reading. Having transformed into another world, he strongly set up every effort. Read a lot and gained knowledge. To manage magic, it should be enough in your body. According to the book, it is enough to pronounce a spell to understand whether you have this ability. This caused a little anxiety in it, because he was aware that even among those who can manage magic, only a small number of them could become real sorcerers. Sam began with the use of a basic spell, trying to overcome his own fear. He carefully said the right words that caused the fire. The spark was lit, and a flame that rose to the ceiling appeared instantly. Stepani felt the aroma of combustion and panic, rushed to the room to a young master who failed to stop the spell. And cured, she demanded that he explain the situation. He only said the phrase when the maid smiled lightly, hinting that the guy could not quench his magic, realizing what had happened. Daphne guessed that the owner possesses magical power. The protagonist asked her not to report it to her father. But she doubted whether he was probably sure, because such information could dramatically change his father's attitude towards him. The guy, without delay, answered unequivocally. Hafni asked the child to avoid further dangerous actions because they were in the house. He had to improve his skills in a safe, isolated place. Although she did not forbid Sam to use magic, he had to avoid everything that could have caused a fire. The main character sincerely apologized to her. He interrupted her, recognizing that he can doubt whether he can handle everything on his own. However, next to Derek, who could be discussed everything, he had nothing to fear. I hugged him and asked that he did not bother her too much. Promise her that you will no longer risk your life. Sam realized that in the eyes of Daphne, he still remains a child, and therefore her concern for him is absolutely natural. Anthony welcomes him on the fact that he became a sorcerer, gently laying his hands on his shoulders. She gently hugged the baby, sincerely confessing that she was feeling true for him. The child gratefully answered thanks because she was both a teacher, a family member, and a beautiful girl. He went deep into the forest, realizing that the use of fire was impossible. There were various types of magic: spontaneous, auxiliary, and protective, and he intended to use them. One day, the protagonist tried to strengthen his body with magic. He believed that, having achieved this, the risk of being unconscious from the evil battle would be reduced. He pulled his hand forward and said the spell how much magic gave him power. Sam made the decision to jump, realizing that relief of the body would prove his success. The main characters made the jump bravely. Joy shone on his face. He never imagined that he would be able to make such a striking jump. The guy decided to test his power, hitting the powerful trunk of the tree, as he was convinced that hand-to-hand battle was more effective than having a sword. With a clear cry, he released a huge trunk, instantly scaring all the birds. After the impact, the wood crumbled into fragments that fell on the ground. Sam did not even suspect his magical talent, and did not realize whether his strength was enough to fight. It was difficult for him to believe that such a powerful power could let him down, because it was thanks to her that he dreamed of becoming a real adventurer. In addition, he did not feel pain. It is convinced that it was a consequence of increasing his physical capacity. He realized that this was only the beginning, but the question remained open. How much time would he stay in this house? He remembers his father indifferently treated him only because of his slaughter with a sword, and the stepmother had no courage to say directly that he was waiting for death. It was not even worth mentioning about Manion. He realized that there was no point in thinking. Regardless of all, he needs to gain strength carefully. The most important thing is to see his servants happy, because without their support, he would feel boundless loneliness. Behind Sam's back unexpectedly appeared a huge bear that immediately rushed to him, lifting a formidable roar. Turned, covered with unbearable fear. He began to retreat slowly without realizing where the bear suddenly came from, and realized that it was no longer possible to escape. The protagonist covered a lot of fear. He tried to calm down and stopped, because he decided he would be the best. He wondered what he would do when, after all, he would run away. Will it return home to cry? He not only mastered magic, but could not retreat before such a challenge. Sam, approaching the bear, concentrated his magical power, folding it into a mighty fist. Going to destroy the enemy, he accurately aims his attack on him. His voice, like a powerful lightning strike, struck the bear. The hero saw his enemy, tormenting the pain, roaring loudly in front of him, and it unexpectedly struck him. He defeated Bearlay right in his eyes, which seemed incredible to him. He noticed a cut that was much sharper than before, and wondered whether he had similar. I realized that physical development is possible without any restrictions. He felt real pleasure in his act. The guy thought that other magical forces may have acted, but at least he owned one, wasn't it? He won the monster. He realized that thanks to this power, the opportunity to travel the world and live according to its own rules. This opened the path that had to be moved. He stepped along the city street. He dragged with great efforts with 2 fallen bears. I realized that it was here that his attempt would not work. Behind him appeared Melia and called his name. He expressed his admiration for the protagonist, emphasizing that his performance was wonderful today. The hero replied that there are still 3 opponents in the forest, so the work needs to be continued. Melius noted that she did not belong to the lazy, and suggested that he rely on her. Sam thanked her for all support, and confessed that the guild had become a great support for him, although she never understood his words. She noted that the guy was catching wild bears every day, so she should thank. He was surprised when he realized that he had been full of year since then. Julia suggested that the impression she would reach if she saw how an ordinary boy, contrary to her years, entails a wild bear, and next to him, a servant who simultaneously announced his desire to join the Adventurers Guild. However, all workers stire. Carol said she would give all his strength today to defeat those bears. Sam immediately answered, full of hope that she would succeed, and as always they would share the acquired. Success was necessary for both him and for the orphanage. One of the boys who lived there has joyfully stated that he could enjoy a hearty meal, and thanked her sincerely by calling Sam his older brother. The protagonist was glad for these guys. At first, he did small things to earn his own needs. The forest is full of dangers. Wild bears prevail here, which is why locals almost do not happen to enjoy the meat. The guy decided to distribute it among locals and children's institutions. It brought Sam to incredible glory, which far exceeds his reputation last year. But if he only managed to become the next head of the family, the gossip was told that the younger brother, Manhwa, had a skillful sword. But his character did not meet expectations at all. Everyone knew it, but no one was strong to tell him aloud. People began to guess whether he would become the next head of the family. The whole city was discussing this, but Sam tirelessly was preparing to become an adventurer. Until the age of majority, he remained only 5 years. The protagonist realized that it was time to gain independence faster. He felt the need to say goodbye to that house. He returned and asked if Daphne was there, and she answered his voice. He handed her a bag of money for a day, for which she thanked her heart. The boys noted that she always showed great kindness to him. He replied that she was watching every development of events with enchanted interest. However, now he seemed like a real adventurer, although the young man kept some doubts about it. He was joined by Derek, who was looking for this young man, and informed the guy that the owner wanted to see him. He was stunned because he found out that throughout this time his father ignored him. The main characters felt that it was heated by the danger, and the words of Derek only confirmed their worst suspicions. The servants confessed that they would always become defense and will not leave its side. The guy met his father and did not understand why Karios Rinbach called him and what could happen. It seemed for the first time he heard a familiar voice of his father. The guy asked what was the matter. At that moment, his father noticed that he had changed and no longer was the man he once knew. He urgently needed to explain something to his son. I reacted calmly to it. The son of a son surprised Karios, who replied that he was saying nothing extra. According to the protagonist, the old man believed that the young man was about to be upset and cry. The father announced an invitation to the Viscount or Ridla party, where they had to greet their successor. This caused a familiar reaction from the young man, because it was predictable for him. The angry man continued, confessing that he was his eldest son, but had no gift skillfully owning a sword. He said coldly that he realized that his father had been angry even more. He confessed that he did not deserve a place in the Reinbach family. However, Manian is an extremely talented and resourceful son, who is adored by both servants and residents of the city. Isn't that amazing? In his opinion, he never saw himself as a successor. The protagonist thought that his father looked somewhat embarrassed. After a few seconds, Karios decided to change the topic of conversation. He remembered that he heard that the guy became an adventurer and wanted to find out if it was true. The guy felt a deep shame, because to recognize his paddle was an unbearable burden for him. Sam, now an adult, he left home to become an adventure seeker and not interfere with Manian's way. He has now been engaged in the execution of instructions, collecting medicinal herbs. He was tormented by repentance because of what he said, because he tried to speak with the authoritativeness that his father usually demonstrates. Realizing that it was necessary to stop, he decided to go to the world. The guy sharply closed the door behind him, covered with a sense of ignorance. He wondered if he would be able to withstand another 5 years near his father. Before Sam, a union appeared with a cunning smile, because he heard their conversation. The protagonist sincerely congratulated his brother on the fact that he became an official heir. He wished him success, accompanying it with a surprised look. Manian, noticing an unusual reaction, wondered what was wrong with him. Sam explained that he just greeted him on the appointment of a new heir. The younger brother perceived it as a joke and believed that Sam showed arrogance only through the support of the servants. The hero realized that the interlocutor sought to watch his reaction and decided to leave. Union ordered him to stop, hysterically stating that he would become the next family head. Sam, without deciding to manifest a very superficial attitude to him, immediately waved his sword and struck. He quickly reacted and turned, not allowing him to grab his sword. The antagonist, surprised by the agility of his brother, asks sarcastically, "Do real successors behave?" Soon he accuses him of something and instantly strikes him. "Then you ordered him to silence and release the sword." Sam could not believe that this man had such a brilliant ability to own a weapon, and this thought seemed absurd to him. At the same time, he realized that he was neglecting the development of his body. After fulfilling the requests of the brothers, the main character released his sword, from which he fell on the floor. He then asked if manganese was free, but he was feverishly not approaching. The brother firmly stated that he did not need the assistance of Sam, and he ordered the estate to leave immediately. He noted that his father, despite his son's university, sought to preserve him, but Mannion was not naive. He constantly drove his brother out of his house. After agreeing with his brother's opinion, he initially stated that he would leave the house tomorrow. However, by a short reflection, he decided to go immediately, despite the request of Mannion. The protagonist was happy to realize that he could act today without delaying everything for tomorrow, although at first he did not even realize it immediately. However, before further steps, he had to talk to Daphne. As he suggested, Daphne strongly denied him. She protested, not realizing how her master could do so. Meanwhile, Sam insisted that it was expressed by Mannion, not his father. The maid, without resorting to a direct appeal, offensively called him an assault, which made an unexpected impression on the boy. So, the protagonist explained that he and Derek both understand. It makes no sense to stay here. The reason for his choice is not related to Mannion. Daphne wanted to question it, however. Despite the conscious danger, he could not imagine to spend 5 years in this house. In the eyes of Wade, the outbreaks of hopelessness were swimming. Sam added that he would definitely miss Daphne and Guys, but he does not want to settle in the place where he is humiliated. He immediately rushed into her arms, sincerely apologizing. He grabbed his working uniform firmly. In preparation for the trip, Sam asked if one of the attendees already knew about his plans. Derek, reassuring the interlocutor, replied that there was no reason to excite. Meanwhile, Hornichna handed him a deliciously packed bento, promised to keep it safe and take care of it. The Bogretsky wanted to make sure that the guy really didn't need money. He replied that he could not pick them up. "This is enough. Use these funds for the benefit of the city residents," he added. He was going to leave the house, assuring that he would certainly write a message to the servants. The servants said goodbye to him with warmth, assuring that they would always be happy to see him. Sam sincerely thanked them for everything. Putting the straps on a huge backpack, he moved on the way. Looking back on the map, the main character decided that his journey would begin with a visit to the royal capital. According to him, the only connection with other worlds could be the dungeon. But does it really exist here? It was there that it was possible not only to perform numerous tasks for the guild, but also perhaps to enter the Academy of Magic. He has never heard about the hero or the king, but I would very much like to meet them. He realized that he lived here all year long, and this world was not a fiction, but a reality. He was drawn to the sun. Sam realized that every person of this world is real, and he, having acquired his own eye, also became a reality. That is why he wanted to explore this place with his own eyes. Looking forward to it, the guy suddenly heard someone sigh. The hero made an assumption that it was a human breath, though it is barely noticeable. Thanks to the sharp sensation, he immediately realized that the sound was real. The guy headed towards the sound source. Sprising in the bush, he gently looked for him and asked, "Who is there?" A girl was in front of him, breathing hard. She settled next to the tree, suddenly impressing it. Pem was surprised to see a man in the thick forest. He focused on a girl who flashed through beauty in his eyes, and turned to her. She opened her eyes. This indicated that the girl seemed to be conscious. In his gaze, the flames flashed, as if reflecting all the power of passion. He leaned to the girl, and gently leaning his palm against her cheek. I was asked if everything was fine with her, and I immediately regretted that I put this question. The girl made an inconspicuous sound. She stated with sheer in her eyes that she needed medical care, simultaneously grabbing him for her clothes and attracted to herself. Pro stated that her stomach was empty, which surprised Sam. She noticed bientôt that she was lying in front of her, and exclaimed it excitedly, thanked for the food, not assuming that it could be fainting with hunger. Nate was in a real delight. Before him was bento from Daphne. The girl sincerely apologized to him because she was sure that she was able to cook anywhere. However, after gathering everything, she forgot to add some important ingredients. Emma asked how she was going to cook something delicious without the necessary ingredients. The girl replied that she owned a charming inventory. It was the first time for the boy when he learned of this ability. and she could not help but emphasize that this gift was a rare phenomenon, so her surprise was absolutely clear. The girl almost forgot to introduce herself when the protagonist began to worry because of the appearance of Bento Shiit. The shadow of the bar, reminiscent of the young man, reached out to him and suddenly frozen. Darov appealed to him as a boy, but the latter immediately corrected him, emphasizing that his name is Sam. He grabbed him by his shoulders and looked at him with a confused face. The Shite came closer to his face. I was asked if it was true, but she confidently stated that she was not going to lie. Sam was surprised to be aware that he had such a wonderful gift. The shape of the car has declared a happy news with an exclamation. Zero ordered the boy to rejoice, because she, a brilliant witch, chose him with her student. She was waiting for his answer. He kept a little breath, but the girl perceived his hesitation as a certain signal. She should not discover her harness, even if she suddenly states, "This is an inevitable appointment." Shidey reached out to leaving the forest, claiming that the path of force spread before his eyes. It is she who will become the light that will finally pursue his path. The guy perceived her words as an undeniable truth, but doubted his appointment. However, he still sought to believe her, so he definitely needs to see the proof with his own eyes. The protagonist persistently asked her to discover his strength, and Shite responded with great interest to his request. Emma asked that later no one said that she could not move freely because of overeating. It caused the real anger of Shite, and she decided to prove to him at what lightning speed the meat was absorbed. I wanted to strike a fist. On the face of a girl who watched the boy, this sign appeared. This time your fist was about to answer him. Her magic forced the roots of the trees to wrap Sam, silently reminding that his forces were insufficient. The main character faced a tree. The girl indicated that it really accumulated a huge amount of magical energy. However, without proper ability to use it, it would be in vain. Shade asked if it could be considered as evidence of her strength and reached out to him. He confirmed her words. He relied on Miss U.R., who asked him to call it teacher. From that day, the guy became fully belonging to her. I answered by agreeing. He began to doubt whether he left the house. In addition, he stressed that he does not regret anything and does not intend to tell her about her rebirth in the near future. You were asked why he did not use his ability during the battle. Thus, the protagonist did not even think about the possibility of possessing any supernatural abilities. Daryl confessed that he was not surprised at all when he learned about it. The magical power is as rare as supernatural abilities, and he was looking forward to what ability he possessed. According to Mizyyr, its supernatural ability was called De Secreor. The protagonist was so surprised that he barely uttered this name. He was not at all aware of the nature of his strength. While the girl was convinced that this ability was specialized in cutting influence, he was convinced that, taking the sword, Sam would become unbreakable. The guy was upset, and she noticed his depression, asked why he was so sad. You made a compliment, stating that no swordfish has such a capacity. So, if he improves his gift, he will be able to become the best knight in the world. He sadly was about to confess to her in her feelings. He confessed that he was not able to use the sword at all. The girl noted that she also unknown all the secrets of possession of the sword, so he must first show her skills. Sam heavenly agreed. His actions perfectly reflected the clumsiness of the main character. You are called absolute failure. His level is so low that she barely held back tears. Carol urged not to take into account the failure. It was not just a sword that could cut everything in its path. The guy asked in surprise that she meant, to which she replied, "Everything is obvious." According to her, magic can be used to cut something, and I realized that time was again to go to magic, as it was before, when it was first successfully tamed the wild bear. Pearl explained that thanks to the magic of the elements, Sam could change their shape and strength at will. Be it flames or water, it can turn them into any image. As an example, she showed how a sword is created from the fire. In addition, he is able to strengthen his physical strength, dealing with magic, even in order to turn his hand into weapons. And this magical power does not have equal. Its only limit is determined only by its imagination. He added that any actions need to practice magic. However, first you need to cope with its sadness and pain. The girl asked if she would agree to go with her. He clumsily rushed after her, trying to catch up. The girl announced that he would now be waiting for permanent cases, and he will be busy. Could not stop feeling that this meeting was truly fateful. The teacher assured him that one day he would be able to surpass even her, a majestic sorcerer. He immediately stopped the student, ordering him to carry his burden on his own as a training exercise, even if the teacher could do it for him. Ram was angry because of the blow that you really overdo it this time. It has been 4 years since he was her student. During this time, he went through incredible trials that made him even stronger. At least he felt that every new day continued to be wonderful. He realized that he may have reacted too emotionally to Manian's words, and left the house hastily. Now he was worried about what his brother did. Recently the letters from servants came less, and this began to cause anxiety. Crossing the endless ocean, they found themselves on the eastern island region, known as the Earth of the Sun, which was incredibly far from their home. Combining world trips, he found that this land, as Ur argued, is a true focus of fire magic. The young man felt more than simply resemblance. Everything was here, which resembled Japan. Sam heard a familiar tune, and although she claimed, the whole situation has incredibly aroused the memories of Edo days. It seems that the main difference from true Japan was that the monsters still appeared here. It was rumored that these creatures were reminiscent of demons, and the protagonist was looking forward to the teacher. She could not understand where that Ur went. Although she explained that she had a small business, at the same time noticed that it was not necessary to go so self. Meanwhile, he heard unusual sounds. There was a strange noise that caught his attention. He decided to find out what caused him. The boys witnessed a hot quarrel between two men who could not share feelings for the same girl. He insisted that he had found her first, and suggested that he went with him. However, he was not sure whether everything would work out. Realizing that she was humiliated and violence against her, he immediately decided to intervene. He left his mark and used a hidden stock that allowed the girl to be released. In his words, they reacted sharply and immediately demanded that he leave the room. Sam was not conceited. Two men immediately began to threaten him. He ordered him to immediately take his hands away from her. The consultants did not take him seriously, laughed, having a clear intention to pay him, and he decided to separate them. He picked up the girl and carried her to a safe place, asking closely if everything was fine. She replied that she was feeling well. He decided to return to the men, but the girl did not want to stay alone. He warned her, "Leave, otherwise she will also get into the maelstrom of events." He asked her to leave all the worries on him, and she did not hesitate to trust in his hands. I looked back at the two men, carefully working on my next move. Men guessed that he used magic himself, because he was able to respond instantly to an unexpected blow. The characters realized that the path would be difficult, so they decided to combine their efforts. The guy suddenly appeared daggers that they boldly challenged him to fight. He paid attention to how instantly attacked, accurately directing the punches of the neck and leg. It seemed to him that their movements were too flawlessly synchronized. He tried to strike them with magic. During the next collision, the guy realized that there was no time to cause a spell. He realized that at such a pace could easily be defeated. One of these men did not understand the purpose of the guy here. The use of magic did not guarantee him victory. He intended to finally get rid of the guy. Not only did you appear, but also lightly for one movement broke all the opponents, pouring them to the ground. His unexpected appearance was truly impressed by Sam. The girl immediately realized that the guy himself initiated this conflict, and, in the end, was defeated. He never suggested that he would almost enter the fatal clash with robbers in the area. It cannot be argued that he was almost defeated. Some are convinced that it is the difficulties that give the most valuable lessons. She acknowledged that she had a duty to teach him as soon as possible, and felt all responsibility for it. The protagonist asked that she was wrong with her. Without delaying, she struck him with a slight slap on his forehead. The news about the use of magic against him was stirred up by Sam, but the teacher still maintained coldness. "Excuse me for not being able to wait without adventure." But the girl asked him not to take it close to her heart. He stopped angry because the most important thing, everything is fine. Pam decided to ask her question. She asked what the duty was spent. She needed him to master magic faster, so she brought him here, to the Temple of Fire. The teacher had a good knowledge of theoretical knowledge, but he needed to get acquainted with the full picture of the variety of magicians. The protagonist denied that there were almost no magicians who could compare with her force. She also noted that most sorcerers prefer a long-distance fighting. Using water magic, not melee, is a kind of etiquette in the world of magic. They were able to use magic even in melee. According to Sam, those cheesemen showed great force in hand-to-hand clashes. He asked if it was related to their skills, and you confirmed it. Daryl noted that it would be better if she had previously informed him, but he could not imagine that he would be in a new match so quickly. For her, those people were too low. The teacher noted that there are so-called murderers of magicians in the world, not because they are professionals with special training, but because they could match the magicians in battle. This is why they were nicknamed. He replied that he felt the same, and they confidently came to the conclusion that in battle, These people did not resort to magic at all. It is known that in this country there are soldiers who are called samurai. It was with them that he fought. To master the art of samurai, it takes a lot of time to study and improve skill, especially in melee. He called the boys annoying and began to realize where this situation was leading. Daryl informed passionately that he was waiting for his training of combat skills with the samurai. Exactly what he had already suspected. She seemed absolutely meaningless. Would they not defeat him? However, time did not endure the delay. Otherwise, the training could last forever. She asked him not to worry. It is only a training match. He asked if she had already chosen someone to do so, which the girl confirmed. At first you wanted to tell him something, and the guy immediately asked what happened. He first saw her so serious, and immediately realized that the case, which was of incredible importance. She began to explain her explanations. It turned out that they did not have money, which unexpectedly struck Sam. So, it meant that Ting had to find out what they would live. However, Ms. UR has already provided such a scenario. A grand plan? How to make money on training duels? Sam confessed that he was experiencing extreme fatigue, that it was not a surprise for you. The guy complained that he spent almost all day in clash. Fortunately, he won some money. The teacher urged him to stop complaining, reminding that it was the addiction to battle with samurai is a great advantage. And he fully agreed with this thought. The guy asked, why was this plan called grand? Zero was stunned by the spectacular name she invented. He himself engulfed uncertainty, and Ignate, unable to withstand the tension, asked if she was serious. She replied that it implies all seriousness. This is brilliant. Now he will be able not only to learn, but also to make money. However, he did not know that her words were seriously spoken. You can believe her. She is definitely not so mad. Sam was unclear why to take such radical steps. After all, at their disposal, there were already money that received from that old corrupted man from a casino. These funds could be used, but the event happened so long ago that the details were almost forgotten. And since everything happened in the past, the girl said that the day had already remained in the past. Sam confessed that to transfer funds to the teacher for preservation was their greatest mistake. She realized that the man immediately attacked. He continued, claiming that it was all for him. Who is to blame if he has not yet mastered the art of flight? However, as the young man noted, the illegal entrance to the country with the help of flights was considered a crime, because his ability to fly was short-lived. Finally, they asked what she was thinking. The teacher was eagerly waiting for this wise step, which, as expected, was inherent in his student. However, it was impossible to say that these words were pleased. We explained that the hero would deal with the same robbers who recently appeared. It is best for the samurai. The training tournament is then planned. If they defeat it, they will receive a cash prize, and if defeated, they will be fined. She asked if he understood the essence of events. He doubted he could handle them. The girl was sure that he would do it. After all, there will always be rivals who underestimate the guy only because of his small height. He did not like that she considered him weak because of his disadvantage. In addition, sometimes it would be useful and interesting to lose. After all, if it is defeated, it is then that it will appear on stage. And if they do not manage to overcome it, they will have to pay a double price. He considered her a true devil. Tracking every detail, he calmly replied that he understood. Finally, everything went well. Thanks to this, he was able to realize how the battle took place, and at the same time, made some money. Always nice when everything is over on a positive note. Suddenly, a man appeared behind him, who turned to him for a moment. He wondered why the stranger approached him. Perhaps the purpose of this step was to challenge him on a duel. He seemed to be late. The guy dropped on his knees in front of him. He had no doubt. Jesus himself stood in front of him. He introduced himself under the name of Unsafe Tinnitus, and stated that he saw the boy's powerful power, which was why he asked for a service, to borrow the power of Sam. The main character ordered him to rise. In his opinion, the real samurai should not lower his knees, seeking help. He was going to listen to him. Samurai confessed that he served the head of the Cheyenne clan, and pleaded guilty to the fact that Fumi had fled the house herself. This news literally stunned the guy. Tommy has experienced harsh conditions all her life, so she almost left the house. In addition, it has passed for a very long time since he has seen her face last. He often saw her because Fumi herself has always been his childhood girlfriend. Although they came from completely different worlds, they were united by a joint game in the picturesque garden of its estate. However, One day their meetings almost disappeared, and communication through the screen was the only means of communication. But it was more than enough for him. And you immediately understood everything. The guy confessed that he was only a girl named Fumi, which made him feel embarrassing. He began to sew, denying it. After all, could the daughter of a manager fall in love with a man from a lower layer? Sam firmly kept his position. I blush without laughing. They advised to postpone the cases of love. She came to the conclusion that the girl is under careful supervision, so she made the decision to escape from home. She asked, "How are you going to look for me if you don't even imagine how I look?" Unsei decided to ask them a somewhat unusual question, to apply the magic of myopia. In fact, he saw Sam use the magic of flight during a training combat. It made him think about whether they can help him look at everything from above. It's easier to say than to do, because, as it is known, he did not imagine what this girl could be. However, in this city, it will certainly attract attention due to its unusual outfit. According to him, she was dressed in kimono unusual purple, and her face remained hidden under the scarf. He immediately recognized her. The guy asked whether the kimono was decorated with a floral pattern, and added that in her eyes it is easy to flash a reddish shade. Samurai recognized her. The main character explained that they met her this morning on the road. She looked lost, as if she didn't know where to go. However, he did not want to reveal the details of what happened. When they called her, she did not rotate and disappeared quickly, leaving Unsaida more and more worried. You apologized to him for missing her and decided to join the search. According to him, Samurai would have been guilty of their lives. Behind him was a man who could barely stay on his feet and suddenly fell to the ground. Sei immediately recognized Mr. Zamu and immediately rushed to him. He asked if this guy was familiar with him. As it turned out, they were sent to look for Fumi Sami. Then he decided to look at the man who worked near the engine. She was worried about him, because his wounds weakened his strength. The weakened guy finally said the name of the only girl who was able to escape. Sam reported that she had been abducted by demons. She recently learned about it, as demons began to appear near the city. The Unsi was surprised that the guy also heard the news. Sam added that his enemy was not some demonic child. This is a real young red demon, remember? It is the one who lives in the outskirts of the city. He wondered why he came to the city at all. There was no need to leave the mountains. She asked her to ask if she had any information about it, and it turned out that he really knew. Daryl confessed that many years ago she had already had a similar threat. However, this battle was extremely tense and complex. He barely said that their leader's den was among the mountains, and he rarely left him. The teacher asked him to stop talking. He insisted that he needed to provide medical care. Since she knew one doctor here, she suggested that he take him to him immediately. He ordered the demon to ride immediately. Sam could not understand why the group went without it, because she knew where the young red demons were. In addition, even getting lost on the road, she would be able to look at everything from above. She gave an inviolable promise. He will soon catch up and send Sam with ants. I assured her that he would be able to draw her path to the den. Sam, gathering all his determination, moved in the direction of the den. He instantly noted that this guy is moving incredibly fast. Are all the sorcerers here? He thought, because he wanted to check how lightning the strongest of them could be. He apologized for drawing him into these troubles. Joy could not understand what he apologized for him. After all, he was involved in the event from the beginning and could not simply ignore what was happening. Because he was always taught to accept immediately those who were in trouble, he could not stay away. Dream noted that the guy had a wonderful teacher. After meeting the demons, they immediately rushed to the attack, without any hesitation, cutting their guts. Full of determination, the enemy was broken, and the brave warriors, satisfied with their victory, moved on. MRI confessed that he was in fact the son of the current head of a dangerous school, whose existence did not know the existence of Sam at all. I explained that in this direction, the known system of ownership of the sword is equivalent in the skill of the style of Amamiya. By that time, they have already reached the Logov. He asked uncertainly whether it was worth going there. Neisei resolutely tuned to the frontal blow. The protagonist also sought to save Fumi himself as soon as possible. About to log in, since the dock was nearby, Sam caused a flame on his palm. Camera. I didn't like this barely ripe silence. They moved deeper inside. He stated that on the other hand, something was wrong. Stuffed, they stopped when the majestic throne stretched before their eyes. He sat a young red demon. Beeman asked for what reason himself and the Unsu found themselves here. He realized that people were in front of him, and the guy felt the unbearable pressure of their presence. He replied that when they came, they had to return Fumi alone. The demon immediately understood the true purpose of their arrival. He shouted to the same girl. I asked for what reason he stole it. Sam was convinced that she was really. He even noted that his actions had reasons that were directly angry with Unsei. Former asked with care, what is wrong? He could not understand what the reason was. They seemed to be sure. They would definitely not be able to win it. However, Sam persistently demanded that he respond. He asked if the demon took the daughter of the hostage for redemption. It is really a petition on his part. It is confirmed that ignorance is, in the end, is a truly horrible thing. The demon decided to answer their question. As it turned out, this girl was his granddaughter. He could barely believe his ears, and immediately asked if the man had any evidence. The demon replied that the evidence was just before his eyes. The horns suddenly appeared, which caused embarrassment. The demon hinted that, given the consideration of samurai, this girl also has a monstrous nature. She is the daughter of his child who married the Cheyenne clan's leader. However, no matter what, people took away his daughter and mercilessly deprived her life. It was because of such unconditional love for people that it happened. He acknowledged that no matter what, she remained his favorite, so the right to take away his grandson belonged to him. The girl was extremely glad that Tadamiki came to her, though everything was fine with her. She asked him to go. Bimon could not help but notice that Unsei was silent. Samurai replied, it was impossible to say a few words when I found out that all this time served as a girl who was a semi-human. Explained that demonic girls radiate extraordinary beauty, which fascinates with their magnetic aura and a unique charm. It's even better. Fum herself, the demonic horn was extremely complimented by her image. Unexpected confession shocked all present. The demon could not understand human thoughts at all, but they no longer felt any affection. He ordered his servants, Yuki and Saki, to take care of them. A voice set for battle. Deep voices of demonic servants showed incredible power. In a simple battle, Sam used his magic. In the last minute, Sam again turned to his magical strength to destroy the enemy. Amurai acknowledged that his friend demonstrated true skill. However, the guy denied, arguing that he may only hear him in a half-hearing, and asked not to rush his success. He hoped that such a reasonable restraint would be sufficient to confront the enemies. Only enemies began the attack again. The servants approached Sam too close and struck him. The protagonist realized that it was only an illusion. Having a skilled skill, he skillfully applied his sword. He has taken his opponents with the last decisive blow. Sam was pleased to admire the demonic servants who invited this. The guy noted that because each of them had only one eye, they had difficulty in the perception of all the faces of the three-dimensional world. However, today this feature has proven to be extremely useful. They began to think about what to do with the demon, when a sound was cut from the darkness of the den. Who finally appeared after so much time? I apologize for my late. He decided that now you could not worry. However, he unexpectedly felt that something was wrong with the demon. From the eyes of the demon, streams were constantly flowing. Immediately recognized the girl. The shadow tied the demon, intently at him with a cunning pleasure, and in the meantime, Samurai rushed to his beloved. She even told the teacher that he did not understand what was happening. The girl asked if he had forgotten the words that he spoke then. For a long time, she has taught him important lessons of life. Fuma Tord himself explained that it was fate. She felt an unwavering desire to thank him from all over the heart for having ever saved her. And it was at that moment that she suddenly felt that she had been broken. Call it coincidence, not fate. Just an attempt to move away from it. And add that he was indignant, because this behavior is not to the face of Sandeno. He realized that he was here when he was about to solve them. A girl named Samurai with her girlfriend appeared on stage. The guy could not understand where she gained such inappropriate statements. The teacher returned to Sam. He argued that he always maintains a great mood, carefully nourishing his confidence to have a reason proudly look at himself. Shite reported that she had concluded a magical treaty with a red young demon to contain him from creating a mess. So now everything will be fine. In fact, he is a grandfather Fuma, and this fact remains unchanged. To live, constantly hiding her horns, would be incredibly difficult for her. Fumi replied that she absolutely understood everything. She was aware that she was born with this grave sin, and was ready to carry his burden all her life. However, I persistently interpret, believing that it was here that she was wrong. She claims that it is a curse inherited from ancestors. However, the most important is how it will do next. According to her, sin is not a gift that God gives, but a burden imposed by humans. She advised to return to the way of God, the right path in this world. which is brilliantly embodied by a man with horns. Only she, the daughter of a man and a demon, is able to do so. The Uncius approached them, giving the impression that they came to escort them. In fact, the guy sought to express his gratitude. Shu was clearly aware that he wanted to meet again. In his turn, Samurai hoped that he would cope with Dijano, which forced Sam to turn red. During the trip, the hero realized that their relationship had acquired a completely different, unexpected shade. Suddenly, the teacher suddenly lost consciousness right before his eyes. I am covered with sadness. I sit at the table and next to you, you rest on the bed. She woke up and called the boy. In the end, she realized that she was really fainted. I asked her not to make such a grimace. The teacher confessed that now everything is fine, because such a reaction was nothing unusual. Lifting the blanket above, he turned away and asked for some more time to relax. She soon became ill, although in 4 years of her life there was no such thing. And maybe he just didn't notice it. He sat motionless right in front of the girl. She called him again. He asked how she feels. In response, she said that it was not bad at first. The guy was already going to call a doctor, but the girl immediately abandoned him. Stop, Sam. You have something important to hear, he said, emphasizing the need to listen to him. The surface was introduced as Samuel Scheidt, a student of the Wicker Walker Sama. Obviously, she has very little time. Tagonist did not understand what she was talking about. He asked where he went, inexhaustibly optimistic. She asked him to calm down and listen carefully to the end, because she suffers from an incurable disease. The causes and treatments remain unknown to all. This disease affects only persons with powerful magical power, so its appearance was extremely rare. We admitted that for all 4 years he has been in excellent condition. The teacher apologized for hiding certain things from him. The real miracle that all these years has remained in good health. When she was informed of the disease, she has not yet celebrated even a year near her family. Without delaying, she tore all the connections with the past, and without saying goodbye to her loved ones, went on a trip, rubbing all the traces of her existence. The guy asked if she really believed that the disease could not be cured. It has been 4 years, and without a doubt, there should be some chance of salvation. However, the girl firmly answered that there was no solution. The fact that the fire of her life of flashing throughout the year was more than sufficient. The whole story turned around a meeting with Sam. The guy asked her to stop and thought when the fate would take his life. It was then that Fran turned to him, because he was about to start training with Sam. He noted that it was not necessary to say as if it had already been over. Finally, he realized that this is where their joint trip to the future began. For him, it meant that they would always be together, and they were convinced that fate made them so that they were not destined. He realized that he still didn't even think about her. The main character remembered how strong her nature was. He remembered her confidence, expressive arrogance, and an incredibly beautiful smile. The teacher emphasized that he is already an adult. Tears are inappropriate for him. He does not want you to take care of her, because she will always live in your heart. To apologize to him was the only way to reassure him. It remains to fulfill one last desire that she sought to fulfill. The heroine sought to give him all her essence, and the guy seemed to have dreamed of getting everything from her. You replied that he did not understand it. She wanted him to accept all her essence, all her life she created, her last magic inheritance. Magical power, sophisticated skill, deep knowledge, and unsurpassed ability. This is what he will receive as an inheritance, giving her life for him. I asked if it could be really possible. The arable land remembered how at the first meeting she introduced herself as the most outstanding sorcerer, for which there was nothing impossible. The guy immediately realized it. She was the one who lightened his path, and so he immediately began to follow her. Beryl asked if he wanted it, because the guy would never say anything like that. So she was the only one who could accept him and fulfill his most cherished desire. They gently clutched their hands. She gave Sam all her essence, discovering every part of herself. It felt warm, as if they had merged into one whole. The power went to the guy. It was reported that everything was over. She had to train constantly to fully master all the strength. However, she was convinced that it would not be an obstacle for him. Tears rolled on the cheeks of Sam. The main character has not yet exhausted his thoughts. He asked him to let her tell her one important thing. This conversation may have been the last between them. She clenched his hand firmly. She loves Sam with all her heart. He was also going to open his heart in front of her. She was aware of her feelings, but was afraid to confess, because she was convinced that he was probably not suitable for a girl whose life could end soon. She always felt that farewell would be extremely difficult, so I would like to express it much earlier. I always thought it was unfair. The girl asked him to live for two, to find happiness. to open the heart of new love and to build a real family based on it. He could not hold back tears, listening carefully. He firmly stated that there would be no such magicians anywhere else. Rest assured, he will certainly find them. He promised that he would always feel happiness for their good. Daryl apologized for her drowsiness and, turning to Sam, gently asked for another last kiss. I responded to a request. We confessed that it was the first kiss for her, and Sam was also the first experience. He said goodbye to her, gently welcoming, "Good night." He carefully transferred the girl's wrapped body to her home, before he lay a letter addressed exclusively to him. He immediately realized that it was a covenant. The protagonist realized that he knew absolutely nothing about her. Her full name did not testify to the disease or the status of the court magician of the Heavenly Kingdom. It should be remembered that she was the firstborn Earl Volker's family. About her feelings for him, it would be much better if he had sought before. But he would still fulfill her assignment. "I will take your body to her family." Before his eyes, an incredible luxury stretched out, from which he was completely confused and did not know who to seek help. One of the careful servants who carefully guarded the territory noticed the boy. He stressed that it was the estate of Count Walker, and asked what purpose he found himself here. Come to meet the Walker estate in person. However, it sounded pointless, because it fled from the estate 5 years ago and since then disappeared. He confessed that he was near that girl throughout this time. He insisted on specificity, rejecting emptiness, and without waiting for the end of thought, carefully came closer. "I saw that it was you, while remaining true to yourself," appeared before him. Emma refused to accept someone's side and met her parents. They heartily thanked him for bringing their daughter's body with her last desires. I asked them not to perform bows, because the usual rite for her students was exactly this. However, they could not restrain their sincere gratitude to him. "We apologize for his late presentation. Meet Johnson Walker, the owner of this estate." The wife of Grace Walker, and she was genuinely glad to meet her husband. In addition, one of Halloween's celebration was introduced as Samuel Scheidt. It could be called simply Sam. According to Johnson, he read a letter from his daughter, which said that the main character inherited from her magic and essence. The man came to the conclusion that this boy is extremely expensive for you. Sam replied that if so, it would be extremely pleased with such news. The father could never imagine that this rebellious girl would get sick with such ailment and moreover would have her student later. Being her father, he felt only disgust. Sam replied that there was no point in this, because he spent 5 years with her, and during this time he did not even notice that she was getting sick. He reproached for himself that he did not have time to notice the symptoms of her illness before. Grace asked him not to blame himself for it. On the contrary, he deserved gratitude. After all, the last farewell ceremony could now take place, and it seems that their daughter really cherished deep love for him. I confess, he also felt a deep love for her, a true devotion to his teacher. Unfortunately, he was able to convey it to her only at the last moments of her journey. On his part, it might seem too arrogant. He considered you a family member that pleased his parents. I asked the guy to tell everything he knew about their daughter, and he happily agreed. For a cup of hot tea, he shared the story of a girl. The couple realized how the events were really happening. Sam confessed that she was in fact an extremely fun teacher. He asked what he intended to do now. The protagonist decided to stay in the capital of the kingdom for a while, as he still had unfinished things. The Graf was interested in asking, "What are it?" Sam sought to surpass his mentor to become the most outstanding magician. His parents considered the goals extremely grand and asked interested whether it seems too complicated. Pem did not deny this. First of all, he dreamed the same, to become a court sorcerer in this country. He noted that Yurik also dreamed of becoming so. Therefore, his desire exactly coincided with her. For the protagonist, it was only a minimal rating, because his goal is to become the most prominent sorcerer in the world. Johnson was pleasantly impressed with his desire. The novel proposed to turn the royal capital into his fortress and settle in their estate. The fact that you stated in the letter instructions to take care of it, she asked her to be allowed to express her gratitude at least. Johnson replied that it was not worth worrying about it. Sam was proposed to become their family magician. They asked if he was sure of his decision. They noted that they also have a daughter's seal. According to the Count, if the other family accepted it, it would be a real shame for them. He noted that fortunately belongs to the family with a rich history of witchcraft. I occupy an important position and have the title of the Graf. My husband also serves as a deputy commander of a detachment in the 1st Magical Army. It seemed to her that it would become a reliable support for him. He leaned forward and suddenly asked, "What made you be ready to do it for me?" Since it was the last desire of their daughter, they felt the need to fulfill at least it. And they realized that they were actually parents of Yor. The Earl decided to introduce their daughters, because now he had to live with them. The smoothie was interested in what the younger sisters of Yor could be, because right now they have appeared on stage. He pointed to 3 girls and was about to present them. He called his daughter a true family pride. The second daughter bore the name of Lisat, but insisted that she was called just Lisa. She sincerely thanked the care of their older sister. The third daughter, Alicia, felt a deep shame. He confessed that she was lagging behind the rhythm of communicating with the guys and apologizing. Sam assured that everything was fine and confessed that he enjoyed their meeting. She reciprocated, and at the end of the fourth daughter, Erica was upset, and her appearance clearly reflected the unwillingness to make new acquaintances. She clearly made it clear that meeting with the successor of Sister She did not please her, and firmly stated that she never recognized him, and he interrupted it. According to him, Erica is older than Sam only a year, but since they both have magic, he is sure that they will easily find common ground. He stated that they are their honorary guest, but this form of appeal to him is impolite. Erica, in response, noted that the stranger would never accept as a native. Her behavior was angry with Sam, which is why Lisa persistently demanded that her sister apologize. In addition, she really was fond of you. Daryl suggested to introduce him to his own room. After she made a tour of the room, she suggested calling a servant if he wanted to take a bath or needs other help. The guy thanked her heartily. He replied that there was nothing wrong with this, because now they were one family. He felt that the forces were exhausted today, and therefore recommended him to rest properly. When you go to bed, the guy thought about you. The main character sat in the room. According to Sam, he actively tested all the gifts inherited from UR, and concluded that even half of them could not master. However, she was an incredible magic master. Lee Sama asked to enter the room. He wanted to find out if Sam now has free time. However, the guy could not stand and asked, "What happened?" Daryl confessed to this, and also handed over the letter that her sister asked. Lisa reported that he would now become his teacher. From that moment on, she was intended to teach him martial arts so that he had mastered it to the fullest. The guy did not realize that such hospitality was the highlight of the Folker family. I couldn't believe how everything was in this condition. He heard that he is really skilled in martial arts. The guy reported that UR constantly etched basic knowledge in him. The girl realized that her sister always showed great benevolence. However, Lee was a little worried, although Sam never understood the cause of his anxiety. She noted that her sister's magic is striking, but the martial arts are a completely different matter. Despite the magical skills, it demonstrates great power in battle. The letter you wrote shows that it has a natural tendency to use magic in the battle, so it must teach it the martial arts. Otherwise, Sam will not be able to surpass her. He told the guy that he would be able to set magic to strengthen the power of the body, and ordered to prepare for action. The protagonist hesitated about the ability to apply strengthening, because the use of this force against other than you caused some concern. Finally, the moment Lisa went to act, he immediately fell to the ground. The girl confessed that he had too many unprotected areas and asked him to be more careful. For the guy, all this seemed like a joke. She realized that she was moving too fast, and the guy did not even have time to see it in detail. The teacher decided to try again, because the young man remained adamant on his feet. He barely asked her to stop as she struck again. Was going to strike. The antagonists did not have time to say a single word. He was stunned by this unexpected change in events. He confessed that his eyes barely have time for her movements, and therefore the body responded instantly. The man did not even realize whether it was possible to really have time at such an incredible pace. He acknowledged that his eye was sharp, but much more had to be learned. The next time it would not be like a gentleness as this time, that it was a very difficult test. It turned out that this man was a student of the Holy Sword, whom Sam knew almost nothing. He replied that this title was assigned to the country's most powerful sword. He noted that it was really worthy of attention. He asked if he would now recognize her with his mentor, because from the very beginning he doubted her abilities. Sam confessed that now all the doubts had disappeared. Lisa was completely captured by this. He asked if he was feeling sad because of his sister's death. Did he really allow himself to cry? Did he still keep emotions under control? M was covered by all, consuming sadness, and wept for a long time. But later, painful memories no longer burden his soul. Then he assured that at that moment, everything was fine. After all, he is still a child, so if he needs to cry, let him do as much as you like. The guy asked with interest, "What about Lee-sama and her sisters?" According to her, of course, everyone was sad. However, she did not feel much anxiety. She was aware that her words may seem reckless. Sam asked if she was feeling sad. The girl was sad because her sister could not live as long as she could. She may have never had the opportunity to fully enjoy every moment of life. They were convinced that for 4 years, her sister had a great time next to him. Previously, she wanted to say goodbye to her without sadness, with a gentle smile on her face. Besides, most likely, this was what her sister wished. Sam was convinced that she was right. She confessed that she sincerely feels envy to her. However, the guy did not understand what she was in mind. The girls announced that the conversation could be completed, and it's time to return to their workouts. However, Sam did not want to start training so early. Erica appealed to the protagonist to go with her. He could not understand why she, silent for 2 weeks, suddenly approached him and asked if he had plans for today. Becca stated that only because his older sister assumes the role of a trainer, it does not mean that they will certainly become friends. Sam, in turn, persistently denied this statement. She was absolutely different. She decisively ordered him to follow her. He intended to go to the guild. There were many fewer people here than Sam. It seemed to him that this place should live as if exploding with energy. He noted that the size of the guild was only due to the fact that it was represented by the royal family in the capital, and was surprised to ask if I heard about it. The man felt uncomfortable. It seemed that it was in the depths of Eric's dungeon that he intended to reveal his true essence. He noted that he should finish the case and go home as soon as possible. However, in his path, a chunky man was stated with the apparent reluctance that he was prevented. The stranger called ordinary people, and Sam tried to keep peace, because he understood that any intervention would only make the situation worse. That young man immediately approached the girl who worked at the institution. The protagonist guessed that a real aristocrat could be hidden behind his splendor. Carol suggested that he stand in the queue, like everyone else. It only aggravated his anger. As she wanted, the eldest son of the Earl, Ranzaguri Dorgan, entered the queue among the common people. His behavior was surprised by Sam. A typical case when a representative of the privileged world appears among the people. The girl firmly stated that these rules are valid. The guy realized that she resisted his orders. As soon as he tells her father, Guild will immediately deprive her membership. He insisted on finding out her name. Sam was absolutely unknown how a sense of guilt affects children of the nobility, but it seemed that it was only in vain. Accepting his fate, the protagonist unexpectedly heard Eric as the aristocrat turn to his son. He acknowledged that he only created problems for everyone. At the same time, the girl hinted at his indifference, because he did not even know about the existence of this line. He could not believe that she felt such words from the son of the aristocrat. It hurt him deeply. I tried to calm down, but it didn't hold her back. She confidently stated that she hated most of the grown people like that boy. He, without holding back his rudeness, arrogantly turned to her, as if something important tortured his thoughts. He noted that, despite its simple origin, it has a rather impressive figure. Dissatisfied with such positioning, she persistently asked him to stop considering herself thoughtfully. The son, configured to jokes, suddenly challenged Arity to a duel. Sam did not even imagine what it was about. The American continued that she had initiated this conflict. I decided to accept this call. At the same time, I was required to stop them. She stated that it was impossible to provoke so easily. The protagonist realized that this desert was clearly conceived. He summoned his servant to bore. It was then that the son of the aristocratic kind came to a clear conclusion. Himself is so worried about her fate that it causes him to a duel, a battle that could not be avoided. Eric denied. According to him, there were 3 enemies, although in fact they were only enough for 2. She asked if she had already felt fear. The girl pulled out with indignation, and the guy asked if she had any remark. However, Erica was absolutely indifferent. Even if they all decided to attack, it was not to the heart. Sam seemed that Erica Samus finally came out. He noted that since this match is conducted within the guild, its status is considered official. In other words, the lost one is obliged to satisfy the desire of the winner. If he wins, both will find themselves in the slaves of his will. This was angry with Sam. He asked what these conditions mean. Erica, unable to withstand the delay, ordered him to silence and agreed to them. This is what he wants, and so everything will be. He subtly hinted that their actions affect him. After all, such duels have long remained in the past. He noted that if they won, everything would be fine. The son of the aristocrat smiled happy. Ask them not to be offended if their death occurs unexpectedly. And I realized that once he had already got into this case, he would need to make even more effort. He noticed that the enemies were too confident in the case. Did they really look so defenseless? Despite this, he remained indifferent and felt nothing. He could go back to the enemy, so that in the event of death, he could not suffer. Servants, if they realized what to do, would have already been tried. I suggest that the Erica goes somewhere. She did not want to stay in the shadow of someone who was younger than her. The girl asked him to watch closely, because on the way she planned to break them into pieces. As a result, a duel was announced among guilders of adventure. The enemy struck Sam, which caused his fall. A powerful blow to the opponent dropped her down. She asked if everything was fine, which, according to the protagonist, was contrary to the established rules. Even before the signal to start, he struck directly in the eyes of a judge, which instantly caused laughter at the opponent. He stated that Erica is now his slave. However, one of the servants stressed that such an act was contrary to the rules, and demanded that the Dorgons stop it immediately. He categorically did not want some guild representative to arrogantly order him what to do. The Dogon Grint asked if it was planned since the beginning. He stated that since he was an aristocrat, he sets the rules as if coming into battle with simple terms. He strictly ordered him to leave immediately. The aristocrat was in fear. The powerful power gave the impetus when a huge hand suddenly broke out of the ground. The guy and his servant. The protagonist ordered the appeared golem to crush them. He insisted that it was a violation of the established rules. Sam, without delay, replied that these words would soon be on his mouth, and squeezed them even stronger. The protagonist made a choice before the enemy, either to be captured by slavery or to meet the inevitable death under his destructive power, and he asked him to stop jokes on the topic that he was not going to be slavery. The servants noted that it was a real official match. The aristocrat is absolutely not set up. Sam is determined to fulfill his last move. The enemy asked not to be killed. He approached a girl who was just beginning to wake up. He replied that they gave them an instructive lesson because they did not pose a serious threat. Everyone was interested in learning how their fate was. As it turned out, Sam gave them a slave trader. The protagonist stated that it is not necessary to apologize because that is what he sought to achieve. Care confessed that she felt envy to him. She felt the image and did not want to confess that you chose it for her. That is why she behaved so terrible. Sincere repentance was burning inside her. He stated that he was not worried at all. Instead, Erica was concerned about this situation. She did inappropriately, joining a clash with a senseless aristocrat, which as a result affected her reputation. She called herself pathetic. The older sister died. And when she found out that she had received all her essence from him, his life goal disappeared from her outlook. She realized that it did not make sense to be angry because of this. She still behaved as if all the problems arose solely because of him. Although she was an officer of the royal army, they noted that, in the end, they lost a loved one. So, this is not surprising. It seems to me that I remembered that he also had to lose someone very important. The main character remains restrained and silent. It has been confirmed that you are the most important person in his life. She was the person he loved the most. Therefore, in such a situation, he should not comfort her. After all, she committed such a terrible act, causing pain to a person who was in no less difficult position than she herself. In the end, she now became a family member who feels the same pain. He tried to reassure her, assuring that everything would be fine. Remember that you are the person you loved so fervently. At night, they returned home, and the closer they approached the estate, the more they realized that the father was inevitably angry. She thanked him for today and apologized for everything else. The protagonist has already asked her to stop these endless apologies. Carol asked, "Are you sure?" She stated that from today he has become part of their family. So, in her spare time, she suggested talking about his older sister. That is, about you. Suddenly they turned to him, inviting him for a walk, calling him Sam. This surprise literally deprived him of the gift of language. He asked the question, why did it happen suddenly? She said she was planning to go hunting. Sitting in the heart of the forest, he enjoyed the warmth of the burning fire. The main characters could not understand why the camp had to be broken, because the girl assured them that they would return the same day. I was asked if she was not enough forks and knife. The forest replied, "No. The taste of food is much better when you consume it with your hands." The guy could not understand what was happening. Only she offered to go hunting, as her mood suddenly rose. And you can say, she came to life. The girl was amazed at Sam's culinary abilities. The man confessed that there was nothing special about this, remembering the times when he led a lonely life. She confessed that she did not have much skills in this, but it did not mean that she could not cook at all. She asked if the eldest sister was ready as unsuccessful as her own. The protagonist noted that it was very negligent. She stated she intended to talk to him. She insisted on clarifying what she was intending to talk about. She replied that she was well aware of his past. Information, of course, received from a letter from her sister. I am asked if she was surprised to find out that his past was not as impressive as everyone thought, but it was not true at all. Although she knew almost all his details, he, in turn, heard nothing about her, and it seemed deeply unfair. She was convinced that Sam's attitude was unfair, so she wanted to get acquainted with her better. For this purpose, she insisted that he leave her today. The girl warned him that the conversation may not be too pleasant, and wanted to make sure that he was really set to listen to her. The protagonist noted that if she wanted it, he would be pleased to listen to her. In fact, Liz was already married. Beryl confessed that Sam may have some discomfort when it comes to such things, but she persistently wanted him to listen to her to the end. Lisa said she married 3 years ago, but in 6 months she could not conceive, which was why her mother constantly rebuked her. I intervene, emphasizing that in such cases, responsibility should be borne by both partners, not just Lisa Summary. After all, closing your baby in 6 months is extremely difficult. It was not a miracle for him that this failed to achieve what he was desired. She said her former husband had a different opinion. At first, she believed that he was decent and kind, but as soon as there were difficulties with children's questions, his attitude changed dramatically. He began to close it regularly in the room, not allowing to touch the sword. Sometimes the situation became such a scale that crossed the border of violence. Forcing her to feel full of blame, he took his mistress. Sam was extremely angry. For her 21 years of life, she claimed that she had never had to resort to bitterness. It was angry that girls were forced to take such a great responsibility. Although, given the circumstances, such things apparently became the norm in this world. Everything continued habitually. Over time, her parents felt something wrong and began to visit her more often. In the end, however, it floated to the surface, which caused a grand scandal. Soon the situation had caused irreversible consequences, and the parents divorced. The protagonist confessed that their marriage was the most unusual of all, and Lisa, smiling, confirmed his words, saying that he was right. My boyfriend was satisfied with this, because she had finally broken all the connections with that man. Let's now let her live on her own choice. She may meet an incredible man, fall in love, and plunge into fabulous happiness. Sam expressed the opinion that she resembled the words that you have already told him. The guy did not realize at the time that he had prompted her thoughts, but now everything became clear. His heart was busy with this man, and he naturally dreams of his happiness. Smiling, he sincerely thanked him. He asked what reason she thanked him, because the answers made only obvious phrases. The girl immediately noticed that his mood had deteriorated sharply. I was convinced of that. For all those moments when she was cruel, he wasted time, not realizing what was happening to her. If he had learned about it before, he would instantly rush to her husband. Even now, he was burning unquenchable thirst for revenge. Although this news seemed pleasant, Lee realized that it could cause unnecessary difficulties for the family. So she just expressed his gratitude for his words, emphasizing that Sam was extremely good. Roy replied that it was obvious, because she was Lisa Sam. Interested, the girl asked what he was in mind while he tried to pick up the exact words. The protagonist called her his dear teacher, who immediately caused her admiration. She rushed into his arms, saying that he was extremely sweet. The guy asked her to stop, realizing how it was to have a student. He inhaled her sweet aroma, which caused slight dizziness. I am asked not to repel them so sharply. Daryl confessed that the holy Simnik, despite his harshness, is able to show tenderness to his students. Now she could feel the authenticity of his feelings, and Liz was convinced that the upbringing of people is quite correct. He gave her another opportunity to take the sword, for which she thanked him again. In the end, I thought it emphasized the smile of the mentor. He did not want to see her face sad. She became so happy that she was able to break the shackles of the sad past. He, with all the strength of his heart, sincerely sought this. She was thinking that her parents may have identified much less anger. I thought that if Sam was not around, they would not only reduce the expenses that pay from their own pocket. Even today, they do not stop reproaching her. It seems that after the incident, Earl Renzogiri contacted her parents. It is clear that parents did not participate at all in this farce. After all, the family of Count Renzogiri is an enemy faction. In addition, due to the testimony of the guild, their complaint was rejected. They said that they eventually had to buy their son from the servants of the slave trainer, paying a double price for him. Erica wondered how everything would have happened if Sam was not around. However, she still wondered where he could be. Didn't his turn come to her this day? Suddenly, someone came to her from behind. Daryl immediately recognized her older brother Gunter and thought for what purpose he came here. In the meantime, the guy asked if he was right with his older brother. He firmly assured that he had already rooted this opinion in his head. Personally, she did not remember the relationship between them. The guy premaricated that she remains as ruthless as always, but he knew her since childhood when she was a little girl. In addition, his marriage was appointed with his older sister. Gunter stated that he was a lover of Yurek's. I noted that regardless of the circumstances, he will always remain a brother for her. Erika realized that this thought had remained unknown to him. She reported that the older sister had left this world. Gunter immediately realized what she hinted. He heard that there was a scoundrel who, using this falsehood, penetrated the trust of her family. He persistently stated that he was the name of Sam, but the girl doubted in his words. Additionally, this Samuel Kuhn is ill, advisedly used by the famous shite magic. He was indeed an extremely interesting person. I could explain that Sam was the sole successor you brought up. That is why she asked him not to say anything wrong about him. He was surprised. It seemed that it would become the one who would find herself against him, because no one else wanted to become his successor, as she. The girl argued that she denied it, although in fact she felt envy. However, he proved his dignity and became her student. She realized that from the moment they conveyed the news of her death, 2 weeks had passed, although he was in no hurry to appear on the day he learned about it. She was covered by the question, what did he do all this time? According to him, the shock struck him so much that he fainted and woke up only this morning. It was extremely difficult to withstand. It didn't matter, because then he really behaved like a real fool. In the end, it could not happen that you or I died, and for a short moment he even believed in this opinion. He interrupted Eric, saying that it was time to meet his Yureak. It clearly annoyed the girl. He noted that even the time of the funeral had passed for a long time, and then asked him to introduce him to Samuel Kuhn. The girl insisted on the absence of empty chats. Gunter replied that he was interested in the fact that he was even such as her sophistication. At first, he planned to break Sam into pieces, but looking at her, instantly looked at his intentions. He asked to spend him in his house. Erika was amazed at this request. She would not allow a psychic like him to meet Sam. It was almost obvious that the man would certainly want to meet him, because he acted as your former successor, and at the same time, her student. In the end, he is a satellite of Yurek's. Erika felt that he had been an ominous, dangerous energy. It is proposed to take a break after another intense training with Sam. Notice how he is gaining strength. It is a pity that he has no sword left. He believed that as soon as he mastered this method, he would be able to finally improve his own magical style. Pearl was convinced that the title of magical sword sounds incredibly spectacular. It was confirmed. The teacher added that after all, he is a real guy. The main characters realized that at first he should succeed in magic. He should aim at the position of a court magician. This indicated that the most prominent magicians of the country received the honorary title of court magicians. Sam Epiphany noted that had already occupied this place of honor before his departure. That is why he strongly seeks to achieve this goal. At first, he will have to win the magical tournament, which will take place in 3 months. He knew that 3 magical tournaments were held every year, and therefore, showing his abilities on one of them, he had a chance to attract attention. He noted that the most effective method is to seek recommendations to other court magicians. He knew one court magician, but there was little difficulty. It was at this point that Gunter and Eric came to him, and Gunter assured that he was not worried about. He immediately recognized him when Gunter put his hand on his shoulder. I could ask what was happening, but all this frightened me to the heart. Therefore, the antagonist did not realize who this attractive man was, from whom such a hostile aura emitted. He uttered his name, Samuel. Erika decisively ordered him to silence. He looked with a distinct misunderstanding. You could just ask him to neglect Gunner. She felt the power of magic Uric, which was radiated from the boy. Undoubtedly, she has already died. However, he still could not fully feel that you were inside him. He apologized for not even introduced. And this guy is Gunter Ignat. He noted that the bride is Eurekas. He was clearly stunned. Lee replied that he invented all this himself. According to her, he is a self-proclaimed groom. She stated that he was essentially his bride. Erika explained that such a statement belonged solely to him, which greatly angered her sister. She replied that she was only ashamed, but others were not suitable. Lee apologized to Sam for Gunter, who always behaved in a similar way. For the main character, this meant much more than simply sympathy. He has repeatedly openly confessed to the Rika's era of love, but every time he faced the refusal. With each new confession, his perseverance has only increased. Already began to take the appearance of stockings. He can no longer calculate how many times she had to expel him with Erika. She asked her to stop, because there was a danger that Samuel could misunderstood the situation. However, The girl insisted that everything was true. He sold it to finally get rid of this place, provided that each of his plan is true. To which the young man firmly stated, "My business has not yet been completed." He expressed his desire to communicate with Samuel. According to him, the death of Johar became a huge loss for them. However, inheriting her whole inheritance, he assumed the role of her successor. The guy intended to make the main character with his wife. Everyone considered him crazy. After that, he was asked, "Do you think he perceives himself as a girl?" Although it may seem strange, it was absolutely normal, and accepted the fact that you left them. Before him was a man who inherited everything from her. This meant that he could choose him with his wife. Gwantapur expressed his intention to marry Sam. The protagonist thought that he probably went crazy when he saw Gunter suddenly sinking to his knees. He asked what was wrong with him. Tot grabbed his heart, saying that he was suffering from chronic disease. He pulled out his needed pants. Anan began to inhale her aroma, convinced that only she was able to cure it. From the moment she met his children, he fell in love with her. His only goal was to become her husband, and therefore he tirelessly improved his magical abilities to respond to her, even expelling the inept brother, which allowed him to become a new head of Earl's family. He could not accept the fact that she left this world, leaving him alone. Daryl immediately realized that he had stolen his sister's underwear again. For him, this thought was absolutely disgusting. Arthur stated that, apparently, he did not intend to become his wife, and called him a true bad guy. I realized that if he did nothing, his cleanliness would be at risk. He asked if they could stop it. Charles really sought this, but his excessive power prevented him from acting. He noted that Gunter held the post of court sorcerer of the 5th rank. Sam could not hide his astonishment by learning of such a high-ranking title. To turn to the protagonist, calling him Sam, which obviously did not like this man. She confessed that his dream was to become a court magician. Recommend him for a court magician. However, he sought to evaluate Sam's ability, so he suggested that he test him in a duel. Arthur intended to support his wife, but he had a desire to check whether he was able to master the force he inherited from you. Own magical abilities. Every day he was covered by the idea that he may have been crazy. Gunter sought to suggest what could happen if the protagonist, having received the power of Uruk, revealed the inept possession of magic. He would kill him. The sisters were persistently not paying attention to his words, but Sam calmly assured that everything was fine. Samuel said that he should be stirred. He asked if the main character was ready, and Sam was set to start at any moment. He realized that the enemy used a magical spell of the barrier. He replied that he became a real master of magical barriers, because by this moment, no one but Uruk was able to break his protective shields. He confidently stated that he would take the second place, showing extraordinary courage. The opponent explained that he could only install a protective barrier, because he is not prone to fierce, aggressive fights. He wished Sam. The protagonist realized that his bias against Sam was unjustified, and decided to check how long he could withstand. He tried to strike his opponent, but the latter prevented his action in a timely manner. Tried to be always one step ahead. Gunter quickly realized that his opponent was moving extremely quickly. It was not enough that he did not have time to respond. He was already preparing to strike a devastating blow from his back to defeat the enemy. After all, thanks to the protective barrier of Gunter, the enemy would not be able to start the attack. No matter how speed the enemy moved while Gunter was in a protective barrier, the latter was not able to touch him. And then he realized that the destruction of it was no difficulty. He called Sam's behavior extremely bad. Its incredible speed and power really impress. He warned hard so that he did not delay, because it is necessary to stop at least one of his blows in time. It is noticeable that both are already firmly on the ground. However, earth magic is now in vain. In its caused flames, a bright label appears. He never saw the physical energy at the same time increased magic, and raised the power of Fire Flash. The curse, he thought. If you are able to break even the strongest barriers, then I will be able to. The enemy suggested that they were the attacks of Ururakes, but he was mistaken. Here were the methods that were processed under the leadership of Lee. When powerful blows joined fire attacks, their strength grew 10 times. Sam did not reach the goal. The guy realized that it didn't work. The situation was more complicated than he expected. However, it is too early to panic breaking through the barrier. He will be able to overcome any difficulties. If he has the opportunity, he decides to try again. I decided to try to break through the barrier. The protagonist struck. He noted that he was really able to concentrate all power in one place and discovered impressive magic reserves. However, these efforts were not enough to break through its unbreakable barrier. He has succeeded. The victory was him. He tried to prove that his barrier remained not broken. He noted that Sam demonstrates the same unwavering in battle as his mentor, who never gives up. At first glance, simple magic can be a true threat if it is exacerbated by incredible force. However, Sam has not yet revealed all his capabilities. He asked if it really was. He confessed that he obviously underestimated his ability. From now on, he resolutely reached the strengthening of his barrier to maximum strength. The hero insisted that Sam would give all his forces in the struggle, because he expected the same uncompromising from his opponent. A group of characters in the courtyard was undoubtedly securely protected. Sam could not allow their family to be harmful. Gunter laughed because he understood why the man did not make every effort. He asked not to worry. The protective barriers of this place are its most outstanding creation, created for fierce battles with Uruk. In his opinion, he will not destroy them himself, because he inherited only the force of He was strongly incited to the attack. So, those who were engaged in tags sought to experience their strength unconditionally. Guy confidently approached his enemy, with each step even more surprising. He was required to attach all his strength, as if putting his life on the map. Gunter immediately recognized the true magic in this. He applied the best technique that the mentor once passed to him. It must pronounce a spell that punches the barrier. They witnessed a true direct attack, a concentrated flame that can only give birth to the Lord of powerful magic. In addition, a magical fire of fire with extraordinary density was used. He did not intend to finish his business. He firmly denied, claiming that his skills could not be compared to the skill of Uruk. The protagonist urged him to evaluate the situation on his own. He then asked whether he was convinced of his ability to keep the barrier without harming others. To which Gunter urged him to stop. The girls are enthusiastically contemplate an incredible sight. She could not believe that Sam is away for such an act, and she thought what was wrong with Gunter. He ordered the healer, because his situation did not allow such a fierce battle. However, the silhouette that suddenly appeared behind her stated that there was no need. A naked Gunter appeared in front of them. He apologized for the inconvenience and assured that everything was fine with him, although his nude caused indignation in Sam. As it turned out, he put a protective spell on his suit. The protagonist stated that he should now fulfill his promise. The Arthur has to give up a senseless idea to make him his wife. Under the influence of greed, since nothing was possible to change anything else, he vowed that Sam would never become his wife. He said he would rather become his wife. He persistently stated that he saw in him Samuel, not Uruk, calling to completely move away from any doubt. Gunter promised to adore this guy with all his heart. Sam sought a peaceful, harmonious life. Watch their dispute, silently perceiving every word. Muscle removed Gunter, not giving him a chance to extend his detrimental effect on Sam. Someone asked why Erica looked so excited. What? Sam's victory caused your enthusiasm? Surprised. But Erica herself explained that it was not. She seems to have finally found a person who will inspire her. She was joined by their father, who described the events that took place as a real rape. In the end, he also turned out to be a magician. Feeling a powerful magical power, he failed to remain calm. It seemed that the Eureka also recognized something. There were much more traces of her presence than he could imagine. The Graf was gratefully sighed, realizing that the house was preserved. She agreed with him, realizing that she obviously made a mistake, underestimating Sam. She decided to keep him under constant control in the magical army until he fully mastered his abilities. Sign of power is clearly exceeding it. He noted that to judge only in view of age is useless, although he is still a minor. Being a court magic at this age is really unusual, and many will express their disagreement. He guessed that someone else could give the recommendation. Perhaps the head of the magical army. Johnson saw the need to turn to the light janitor. He remembered his sister, the mentor of UR, who, as fate, was deprived of the post of court magician. Undoubtedly, it has a great force that everyone recognizes. He was concerned and clearly aware of it. The Earl decided to take the risk despite the danger, because he fully trusted Sam. She was absolutely sure of this, but something in Mrs. Dilate caused her anxiety. He informed Sam that he plans to offer his candidacy for the post of the courtyard. He realized that his magic was able to break through the protective barrier of Gunter. Its power exceeded all his expectations. The news filled the guy with boundless joy. He apologized for his previous underestimation, and Sam affected his head. He thought he was fully aware of his capabilities, but later it turned out that he had seen nothing. For Johnson, it became a real humiliation. I can't promise that I will recommend it. Sam thanked, however. He asked me interested. Does Gunpla plan to put it on as a candidate? They replied that both are ready to recommend it, but it requires additional support. Sam asked what it means. Johnson stressed that his potential is undoubted, but the issue of age continues to remain relevant. He seeks to introduce you to a special personality, a master of Dilate Sinatra. He also noted Count, asking if you once heard this name. Someone asked who was the Master of Delight. He was a mentor of UR and the former court sorcerer of the second rank. He once became famous as the most powerful sorcerer of the kingdom. Protagonist Steve, mentor UR, was considered the most powerful sorcerer of the kingdom. However, the latter specified that it was so once. Only a few years ago, he was won and deprived of the power of Albert Frash. Sam concluded that Albert is now considered the most powerful force of the kingdom. However, his belief was that the true leader of power represents UR. Johnson argued that UR undoubtedly stronger. She just did not like Albert, and the post of court magician did not cause her interest. I was asked if she felt the same dislike for Albert as in other cases. It turned out that yes. Albert is a representative of an aristocracy from an enemy fraction that brutally humiliates the weaker. He uses the status of a court sorcerer without hesitation to achieve his own goals. He simply could not stand him, and Sam was convinced that he would not be able to perceive him himself. He wondered whether his victory over Albert was the most powerful force in the kingdom. Indeed, it should be true. However, the Earl doubted whether this man would dare to fight. It turned out that even the most powerful in the Yard magazines did not have the highest force. Leadership belonged to Lady Magnolia, the sorceress of healing, with whom even the challenge to fight was in vain. One day, when he was asked if he intended to fight the Magnolia, Sam replied that he was not looking for meaningless conflicts. Although he was a newcomer, the guy always found himself in trouble. For example, an adventure with Gunter last day. The protagonist apologized, though he was the victim this time. Gunter came behind him. They were persistent not to touch the other, and not to wander around the house, in particular, in the host's bathroom. He said that a tub was used by this bath, and now Sam repeated his example. According to him, bathing proved to be extremely pleasant, but it remained unchanged. He warned Johnson that the conversation began to deviate from the main topic. The delicacy master expected that he would advise Sam to the post of court majority, and moreover, wanted to find out Johnson's opinion on this. He was consisting. In his opinion, Sam must meet the mentor, because such a meeting would undoubtedly be an extremely useful experience. The Earl understood the essence of the case, but the influence of the Master of Joy was still extremely powerful. He apologized for the excessive conversation and for leaving his husband away, which clearly did not fall into the pleasure of Sam. It is said that the Master of Pleasure is a prominent magician who, in the prime of his power, would probably be able to break through his own barrier. He thought whether his enemy's age made his age more complicated. However, everything indicated that he was not so older at all. He said that after he was deprived of the post of court magician, he began to dive into alcohol to sharpen his grief, and eventually found himself completely in it. Gunter was asked to detect more tact. It turned out that the master of the Dialect, increasingly immersed in the booze, eventually refused to use magic. He is now taken care of by Francesca's daughter. He used to have many students, and now they are not at all. Gunter noted that he is truly demanding, but not bad, and always burned in his passion for magic. He confessed that after these events he began to resort to alcohol. Today there is no trace of the man he was once. The only student left was you, and remember her. He was offered to decide himself whether he wanted to meet Mr. Delete after this story. There was no coercion. I was asked if it was all done for his good. Johnson hoped that meeting with the master would be a catalyst for positive changes in the character of the boy. He was not just a teacher for war. His influence exceeded the usual framework of study. He really became his real mentor. That is why the guy dreamed of finally meet him. He replied that if Lisa asked something from him, he would without hesitation fulfill any desire. She laughed at that. The girls noted that his act was extremely noble, but he should not inform the woman of his willingness to satisfy any of her desire, because it can turn into irreparable consequences. Today she has asked a significant request concerning Miss Delight. The source of her joy was Francesca, the expensive girlfriend, which he did not even suspect. He still hopes for the return of the Master of Delight. She asked to entrust it to her. The protagonist promised to do everything possible to support her as a student of UR. He gently hugged him, sincerely expressing his gratitude. She was a little awkward. She confessed that his kindness was so attractive that she just couldn't stay. The man was not too pleasantly surprised when she called him cute. Liz stressed that he was right. After all, Sam is not a girl. The protagonist gave the word to make every effort to the benefit of both. Sam felt loneliness even before leaving, despite the fact that the separation had only a few days. Finally, he arrived at the destination. There he was met by a girl who reported that she was already waiting for him. Sam immediately noticed her charm and was politely introduced. "I apologize for an unexpected visit." The girl assured him that there was no reason for concern, because his arrival was already reported. In addition, she learned that he is one of your students. Her father will certainly be satisfied, and Sam hopes it. The girl introduced herself as the light daughter of Sinatra, Francesca Sinatra. Allow him to call her a girlfriend, and the guy added that she can call him Sam. The protagonist stated that, given her title of countess, he would be grateful if she refused to contact him for you, and it seemed absolutely acceptable to her. She wanted to give him his father as soon as possible. She regretted most that she may have affected his feelings about her father. Sam assured that everything is fine. Earl said that, having learned about the death of Urex, he began to immerse himself in alcohol. He continually resorted to drinking, trying to suppress the pain. Her boyfriend clearly understood why she was going. To call it just a manifestation of weakness. For the main character, these words were cruelly heard. He noted that Sam, although he was young, was already able to accept the death of his precious mentor. That is why she felt shame for her father. The memory is overflowing with memories of you. At this point, the girl gently stroked him on her head, saying that he is an extremely good person. However, immediately realizing her mistake, she apologized. He noted that this does not cause any worries, and that he agrees with the situation. Then she confessed that she was the only child in the family, and always dreamed of her brother, similar to him. Whatever bitter this confession, it was covered by a sense of shame. The guy would be extremely happy if he had a sister like her. However, the girl perceived his words as just flattery. He was amazed at numerous places where the art of magic could be mastered. He explained that his father once had many students, but now none of them needed. Then I asked if Albert had deprived him of the title of strongman and removed the court sorcerer. The girl explained that everything was not so clear. Indeed, Albert deprived him of the title of the strongest, but his father selflessly left the post of court sorcerer. Sam remained stunned by such a turn of events. He could not stand the humiliating defeat before His Majesty. Everything could have happened differently if Albert was a decent person, but he was a coward, a loyal, and a treacherous scoundrel, who finds pleasure in humiliation of the weak. The father could not put up with the idea that he would be defeated by such a person. Sam asked if she knew Alberta. According to Fran, he always appears in their home solely to mock her father. He even asked her to become his wife, and now he does not miss the opportunity to joke from them from time to time. The girl apologized for a very personal question, and Sam also apologized if necessary to put it. France assured that everything is fine. He insisted that Albert was not mentioned in the presence of her father. They stopped right in front of the door of his room. Daryl, opening the door, hoped that alcohol did not affect his behavior. She told her father that he had come to the guest, a student of Urax, Samuel Sheet. She apologized to the boy and strictly warned him from drinking. Sam confidently replied that everything was fine, because he was genuinely pleased with this acquaintance. Soon the main character introduced himself. He proudly confessed that he was studying with Scheitvover Urik, and then the man proclaimed her name again. He called Sam a boyfriend. He acknowledged that he was still a minor, but his skills have already reached great level. The man sitting in front of him called it a noble act to know as he fell as he was, although he warned that nothing good would come out of it. She said she came here because she wanted him to put forward his candidacy for the post of court magician. My father asked what she was in mind, to give an astronaut joy and cause his laughter. Court magic is not as simple as it may seem like a child's imagination. The antagonist noted that this may be true. However, the role of the court magician for him was only a step. He was a student, you are, and dreamed of becoming the most powerful. The master asked how he dared to call himself the strongest in his presence. The girl admires that Sam was really extremely powerful because she heard about how he broke the Gunter barrier. The man asked if Sam really broke the barrier that guarded that strange guy. He confirmed this, though Mr. Dillette stopped for a moment, thinking. He turned to the main character, calling him a little boy. The protagonist immediately insisted that he would be named Sam. Only a little boy was all that the master needs. He asked if his confidence in his abilities was truly extraordinary. He replied that you prepared it perfectly. Prince's father stated that if the main character shows such arrogance, let him personally convince what he is capable of. The one who calls himself a UR student and uses only banal magic does not hesitate. He will kill such immediately. Sam decided to challenge the call, planning to surprise France with his unexpected statement. This moment was the perfect chance for him. He sought to check how powerful his magic may be against this man. Cursed words that can conquer even the owner himself. The man was already going to rise when the guy with his friend turned in his direction. Her father did not need to abuse alcohol. According to him, he did not drink so much. Sam was in no hurry to leave the place. He stayed until he took a hot bath and came to his senses. The protagonist advised the man not to rush and be sure to make sure that you do not forget to drink enough water. And she asked what magic was used by Sam. Finally, her father announced that he was going to fight him. It was hard to believe that he would spend the day without drinking alcohol. The father has not practiced magic for years, and his passion for her once has long gone away. I was convinced that the fire of passion for the magic of the master delights did not go out yet, and Fran expressed a different opinion. Emma only asked her to throw her eyes, and she would immediately understand everything. Before his eyes, a magical volume opened, next to which a carefully polished magic wand lay. The difficult circumstances that had fallen into the fate of the sorcerer were despaired. But he could not abandon his passion for magic for nothing. He adored magic infinitely, and thanks to this, it revealed its true essence. Did not contain any crumbs of dust. Undoubtedly, his passion for magic did not know the limits. Guy did not think that for the sake of alcohol he abandoned his magic. The girl was convinced that he wanted to surpass Albert. She suddenly fell to her knees, closing her face with palms. Fran realized that her father still did not give up magic. She burst into tears, so Sam stretched her nose. Carol thanked for this, and suddenly her attention was attracted by something unusual. The protagonist heard a strange noise in the hallway and without spending time called his friend. Suddenly, realizing that something was wrong, everyone rushed to the entrance. He replied that the guy had already come. Sam was stunned by the unexpected development of events. They appeared in front of them, who introduced himself to the most prominent sorcerer of the kingdom, Albert Frash. He asked, "How much more time are you going to delay me?" She turned to him, calling him by his name, but the man emphasized that he should be pronounced as Master Albert. He added, "That's what happens when a girl is deprived of manner." He could not believe that this uneducated character really turned out to be the strongest in the whole kingdom. Cheryl could not understand what he was waiting. She wanted to talk about her father, but his words interrupted her. He did not seem here to talk about the always drunk unfortunate. His attention was focused exclusively on Frances. He believes there was a time when she has to return to him, because he dreamed of making her his wife. Who at all would like to be in her place? Sam was not yet aware of which man was dealing with. He wanted to deal with him immediately, but Miss Friend did not seem. Noticing our presence, he realized that it is not the best moment for his intervention now. He suggested that she think carefully. If she becomes his wife, he would surely take care of her dog, and may still advise her with an interesting vacancy. It is burdened with debts she almost does not possess. Everything remains, it is an estate, because even the last student of her father has already left. She felt that she had no alternative but to sell her body for survival. She strongly gave him a slap, saying that the insults would no longer suffer. She was convinced that her father would finally decide to come to her senses. Moreover, she was convinced that it was better to sell her body than to become his wife. He replied that he showed extraordinary kindness to her, but she began to behave too brazenly. Warning her to keep her city, he stated that he would soon strike her with all her strength. At that moment, Sam covered the girl with his body and took a blow on himself. Albert was not aware of what he was doing. The protagonist exclaimed his name. The consultant man recognized the deceased student of Urex. He could not believe that it was this young man who belonged to her students. According to him, her life was in vain. His friend asked him to stop, but Sam just smiled. "It's all right." He did not worry about Albert. The hero made a compliment by raising his hand as a sign of greeting to the woman. Threading. Sam, without holding back rudeness, noted that such behavior could only show Albert, who also calls himself the strongest. Albert rejected empty chats and asked firmly, "What do you want from me?" The protagonist challenged him. He dreamed of winning the title of a court magician and becoming a recognized kingdom's strongest person. The next day, the Light realized that Sam intended to join the duel with Albert, and the latter gladly confirmed his call. Glad could not allow such a person to become a court sorcerer, not to mention that he called himself the most powerful of all. He called him an idiot, but Sam replied, "It is that is how it is." After all, Albert remains the strongest man in the kingdom. With such rivals rarely challenges. He wanted to express his gratitude to the guy for the protection of his daughter. After all, he was her father, and when he even began to worry, it made the girl feel a real humility. The master noted that his words were spoken exclusively for reasoning. The protagonist could not understand why, But Albert was enthusiastic and passionate for an unknown cause. His friend, noticing the expression on his face, immediately realized that Albert was making something. He turned to Sam, calling him a boy, which again caused his dissatisfaction. One of the interlocutors asked if they had a chance to win, to which Sam said with assurance that there was such a chance. However, the master asked the question, "Is it just about it?" He stressed that the matter is much more complicated because his status is at stake. He thoughtfully wondered if his kingdom would approve of his actions. Fran, interested, asked what he meant. He turned to Sam. "The magicians of the royal court are directly under the rule of the king. The duel must be approved from both the aristocracy and the king himself. Regardless of Albert arguments persecuted, without receiving all the necessary approvals will not be put into practice." He expected that, having won, the king would recognize all his merits. However, this approach was too optimistic. They explained with great enthusiasm that everything depended on whether it was possible to obtain permission to a duel. They said Sam was going at extreme risk, and the master replied, "There is no other way out, either to kill or be killed." The guy firmly decided not to be defeated. The man explained that his words were due to the fact that he has not yet encountered him in a real battle. So the antagonist decided to find out which of you is stronger, you or Albert. Answer without delay. Yes, just me. And why did the student die to his mentor? He added that the surrounding space begins to absorb moisture. Sam apologized for an inappropriate question. If so, he has every chance of winning. After all, he received a lot from his mentor. The master noted the determination of the boy, and emphasized that he had enough boundless courage. He suggested returning home tonight, but Sam immediately wanted to deny it. Mr. Delight will consider the opportunity to recommend him for the post of court sorcerer. However, first it is necessary to resolve the question of the duel. Recently, he was rumored. They say that he can approve a duel and can refuse. Interested, the protagonist asked what exactly the conversation returned, and he replied that the aristocrats behind Alberta sought to demonstrate their power. He is quite indifferent to it. The master asks Sam to visit tomorrow morning. Preparing for the battle with Albert, he meant that he was ready to follow the student of his granddaughter. Gay and Fran were pleasantly surprised by such a turn of events. The protagonist asked if he was really confident in his actions. The man agreed, but added, "Not a prominent drunkard." He made it clear that the guy did not bother him. Such behavior clearly demonstrated the features of the Kunders. Since Sam returned home, Manastas's daughter took up other things. He accompanied him until he left. He has not seen such joy for a long time. All thanks to the main character. Ever since he lost you, he has changed. She is convinced that he was again revived the qualities that he had once left his mentor. I realized that if so, then everything gets incredible charm. The girl had no doubt about that. She felt it. He felt that Aura Sam was extremely reminiscent of yours, giving her a special charm. The guy, not being confident in his observations, decided to clarify it, asking. He replied that it was due to many features, but the most striking because of his confidence in confronting any enemy. The protagonist was convinced that this is the case, but he was not exaggerated. He had a clear intention to defeat Albert without unnecessary effort. However, she had her comments. Pearl asked if his fear was. If she was in his place, she would not stand against Albert. The whole thing is that meeting with him seems too tremendous. The guy did not feel fear. In addition, Fran boldly came to meet him. It was simply incredible, although the girl felt some awkwardness, and he was convinced that she was extremely strong. I promise to always stand on your side because I love my last breath. Fran was sincerely grateful for these words. She gave him all his soul, being sure that he would not allow this treacherous influence to overcome himself. That evening, the kingdom approved a duel between Sam and Albert, which will take place in a week. Once upon a time, the master talked with the student. Mr. Delight turned to you and asked, "What is the meaning of her stay with you if she is so powerful?" The man asked her to stop calling him a master, because this form of treatment caused him discomfort. He advised the master to master such a manner of speech, so as not to give the impression of a typical reed botany. At the same time, he asked her to refrain from excessive ingenuity. Mr. Delight stated that she has not yet realized the size of her power. According to him, as long as she was under his mentoring, she had to take the student. The girl laughed and asked him not to joke in such words. He replied that if she assumed the role of the student, the whole world would turn upside down. And finally, who could imagine that Sam would contact Mr. Albert? My father and daughter were surprised that he was still nearby. Mr. Delight asked him to listen. He explained that he had been watching the guy closely for a week, but he could hardly offer him anything new. especially in the field of magic. Realizing that he was much stronger than him, the guy returned his attention to him. He emphasized that the protagonist had already gained considerable experience, and was convinced that joint travel with you brought him many important lessons. He also mastered the art of Lisa tights. Given all the skills gained, the master remained with the only real option. Step forward, heading to the light. The master realized that his reaction was incredibly fast. The guy realized, if he was delayed with the answer, he would not have happened. Strengthening the body happens so naturally that it seemed that it happens without any effort. As expected, no doubt has come a new cycle. Although the master failed to discover the secrets of magic, at least he made him fight him until the last drop of forces. In the eyes of Sam was clearly something unusual. Turning to Albert, Mr. DeLate noted that people are capable of corruption. However, it does not matter on the battlefield who will be your enemy. He decisively decided to put an end to the opponent and should act immediately. He could not leave him any chance to win. At that moment, Sam felt the master deprived him of his life. However, miraculously, he did not give in death. This can only be understood through your own experience. The joy released a bright flame, saying that Albert was not the way everyone thought. Sam remembered you, and was filled with determination to give all his strength. He will apply all his skills. Only Sam was able to stop this master. Sam was amazed at the incredible skill of this opponent. Inside the estate was a voice who had just learned that Sam had challenged Mr. Albert to a duel. He cut that he was Sam's wife, which Lee he kept in heard that it was so. Notice how a decisive guy suggested that they take place. According to Lisa, she could never imagine that Duel Sam with Albert would receive approval. Johnson shared her opinion. If it was possible, he would gladly watch the events live. It was unclear to him, for some reason, history was always ended with a duel, no matter how many times he heard her story. Arthur argued that Sam's act aimed at defending Francesco was absolutely justified. Albert also gained a notorious reputation due to his strange enthusiasm for women. He stated that he possesses great force. Although the attitude towards this man was questionable, the final possession of the kingdoms is always decided by a duel. It is impossible not to notice that even Gunter paid attention. He continued that naturally Albert would not be able to overcome his barriers. But if it is only a power, then his strength is undoubtedly unsurpassed. He reluctantly confessed. He thought why His Majesty the King allowed this match, and so quickly. Johnson replied that all aristocrats seemed to support this match. Apparently, the king intended something. She noted that only a week for preparing for a duel seemed surprising. Gunter, in turn, asked her to calm down a little. He stated that even he did not worry about Sam. To which the interlocutor immediately opened, which, of course, was worried. The last girl sincerely believed that the wife should not worry about her husband. However, he dreamed of seeing how Sam would overcome the most powerful man of the kingdom. He asked Gunter to silence, after which Johnson asked if he really believed that Sam would be able to overcome Albert. He was convinced that he had a good chance of winning. After all, he was the person who could burn both the ally and the enemy on the battlefield. I thought that Sam would all be fine, although he had no definitive confidence. He still has not supported a duel. At that time, Guy is convinced that trust in itself is a manifestation of love. Moreover, Delight Master decided to take care of Sam. Gunter was surprised, and Liz felt that Francesco was really relieved. He noted that this is quite likely. Both Ulrich and Sam are demonstrating strong aggression against people who do not like them. It is likely that he will not move to the attitude towards Albert. According to Lee, UR has repeatedly made similar mistakes, which was why she was genuinely worried about Sam. They noted that they are extremely similar to each other. He remembered Sam, covered with anger. The guy disobey him in front of Francesco, and the memories of the teaching of the European little one instantly heated his dignity. According to him, this misery did not even gain the status of Vaj, but he made a decision to challenge the most powerful person of the kingdom to the duel. And he appeared behind him. He noted that, despite the maturity of the years, Sam remained a student of Arax. Gilbert was already going to break him into the eyes of everyone when a man appeared nearby. "You have a ring." The man spent a huge amount to buy this ring. Daryl apologized for looking without permission, because the guy owned incredible magical abilities. In addition, he had a tendency to unusual strength, the kind of talent she was looking for. He reminded the person whose action was given the strength to become the most powerful person in the kingdom. Albert, in response, ordered him to be silent. He decided to force Sam to pay for his ridicule. The most powerful man of the kingdom was on the verge of revealing all his power.